Yo, what's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Hope that you all had a good Memorial Day weekend, holiday weekend, and you got to spend some time with your families and your friends and relax a little bit. Now, I had some family in town and we were working in the yard all weekend. I had 75 cubic yards of mulch delivered to my house. It was dropped off right at the bottom of my property, which is on, of course, a big hill. So I had to, by hand, move all of that mulch, all of that earth. It was a lot of work, but I had some family in town helping me out. We beasted that shit. There was neighbors outside watching, and they were like, "Yo, why don't you hire helpers?" It's like, man, my family ain't like that. We do shit ourselves. So anyway, that's why we didn't have TNC yesterday. I was working all day, having a good time visiting with my family, but we were working our asses off outside the whole time. So good stuff, but man, I'm tired. So no working out for me today. I'm taking the day off. But let me get myself set up here in the chat. And I missed you guys. So I saw, I was listening to a couple pods, and I saw a lot of headlines about this DAZN thing. So wanted to talk about it a little bit. And I don't know. I know a lot of you out there are curious about this kind of stuff. Maybe you don't give a shit, and this video will fall flat. I don't know, but I just thought it was worth talking about because one of the main things I've seen. So I should give a little bit of context here. Of course, go ahead and smash the thumbs up button. I don't have calls opened up right now, guys. So we're just going to do chat here on YouTube. I got my monitor here. I can see the live video. So if you guys have any questions, get them in. I'll try to get to them. Of course, if a super chat pops up, boom, that's going to pop up to the top of the list. But as always, I ask you guys hit the thumbs up and share this video, okay? If you guys would like to hear the audio version of this on the other platforms, let me know, and I can do that too. I can release it out on Apple Podcast and it'll distribute from there. But okay, financial issues at DAZN. So obviously, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, even if you have been sleeping under a damn rock, there's probably some news about COVID-19 under that rock, right? Everyone knows we're in a global pandemic, and that has crushed the sports world. So nobody in the sporting world is making any cash right now, and that is going to affect a company like DAZN more than anybody else because they are solely based on subscribers to turn a profit, and they're a 100% sports based. So that's going to hurt companies like DAZN more than anybody else. Oh, CJ Duncan, what's up, brother? With the super chat. I hope you guys are doing well, man. He says, the man Montero, cheers, brother. Cheers to you, sir. I hope you and yours are doing very well. I appreciate the super chat, my brother. Mr. Two Hands Up is on the chat. What's up? He says, Salute Mike 100. What's up, brother? So glad you're on the chat, man. I'm happy you guys are on. Like I said, man, no TNC yesterday, and I missed you guys. So I just wanted to get on here and rant about this DAZN shit. Hopefully I don't bore everybody to death. I'm not going to get into numbers here, okay? I'm not going to be that guy. There's too much of that shit all over YouTube and social. And I find that shit boring. Do you guys really want me to break down numbers? And I always say this, I wasn't in the boardrooms when these deals were being signed, with all these lawyers and shit. And no, neither were any of these people on YouTube and Twitter that are, crunching numbers. So why do that shit? Here's the bottom line. DAZN right now, people got to remember, DAZN I think is in 9 countries right now, including America. And most of their platform is over in Europe and related to football. I'm not talking about American gridiron football. I'm talking about the German league, I think the Italian league, soccer, right? We call it soccer here in the States, but football in most of the world. That is where a lot of their investment is. So they only recently, about a year ago, got involved into boxing, and that's primarily here in the United States. And they made $1 billion+ investment, but that was a drop in the bucket because they've spent billions of dollars, or they have billions of dollars in commitments, I should say, to sports leagues primarily over in Europe. So the boxing portion is a significant portion, but there's also all these other sports leagues involved. And one quick number. I will go against my word here. Um, DAZN was valued at 3.7 billion in 2018. Okay, right about the time they started to get involved in boxing, and they sold off a 10% stake to a Japanese company for 369 million. I don't think they get that valuation today. No financial expert would. But the zone right now currently has over 3 billion in financial commitments with all the deals that they've signed, and most of that is with these sports leagues over in Europe. Again, I think there's a German soccer league and an Italian soccer league in particular. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, guys, but I think so. So the reason why the zone's in the news is because Len Blavatnik, who heads up the zone. He's the lead guy. He's a billionaire, not just a millionaire, a billionaire. He's been going around trying to raise money. And so, they're not having a lot of financial success right now because they're not having any revenue. There's no sports. So most people here in the United States have canceled or paused their subscription as it relates to boxing. But you guys got to think bigger than that, think globally. Most DAZN subscribers in the other 8 countries it's currently in have also either canceled or paused their subscription because there's no football on or any of the other sports that DAZN is invested in those other markets. So they're not getting money from anywhere. And Blavatnik has also sought to defer payments that DAZN owes to sports league in European, it's different sports leagues in European football. So basically, he's trying to say, hey man, we can't pay you guys right now. All these different sports leagues that they owe money to, licensing fees and things like that, part of the deals that they signed over there, they can't pay that money right now, or at least they don't want to. I mean, they can. The dude's a billionaire. But he's said, hey, can we defer these payments right now during this pandemic while everything's on hold? And that should tell you guys where they're at. I mean, he wouldn't do that. In one sense, it makes sense to do it from a business perspective. Why the hell would you make payments to these sports leagues when there's no sports going on? You're not getting what you paid for from his perspective. So why the hell would you pay for it? At the same time, though, he should think a little bit about the subscribers, because why the hell would any of you guys pay when you're not getting anything in return? It always goes both ways. But there was a recent interview with Eddie Hearn, I think it was on Boxing Scene, where he talked about inflated fighter purses, right? And he said, this is partially my fault. It's partially the zone's fault in recent years. He said that he had a recent conversation with Bob Arum. Bob Arum has been going in hard at Eddie Hearn in recent years, ever since this DAZN thing. For some reason, Eddie Hearn is seen as the face of DAZN, even though he's not. I think it's because his company has received the biggest investment from DAZN. There was apparently $1 billion investment. It wasn't upfront. It's over years. I think it's like almost a decade, better part of a decade. It ends up being like $1 billion basically. So maybe that's kind of why he's the face of DAZN. He really was the first big boxing promoter to get involved on DAZN exclusively, but he's not the only one. Anyway, he talked about in this interview Bob Arum going in hard on him. And Arum also went, before Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum was going in hard on Al Haymon back in 2015, 2016 with the whole PBC thing. And of course, that brings up the discussions about, I've seen this on a lot of social media, why is it that when PBC first came out, everyone was dissing it, there was all this media scrutiny, and there's such little media scrutiny right now with DAZN / Eddie Hearn. Again, Eddie Hearn isn't part of DAZN as far as being an executive or anything like that, but he gets, basically, he's the face of it, according to a lot of people that have agendas on YouTube and boxing, social media, and all that. And that's a fair question. It's a fair question to say, or ask, why was Uncle Al and PBC hated on so much, or I shouldn't say hated on, but criticized so heavily, and DAZN was just almost blindly accepted across the board, as so many people were excited about it, and there's been such little scrutiny. On the surface, it does look like a double standard, and I understand that. And myself, looking back, I was really hard on PBC when they first came out. There were certain things I saw that I didn't like, but looking back now, I realize, I probably could have softened my rhetoric and been a little more fair. There are some things that I think PBC ended up doing very, very well that forced other promoters to step up their game, including Bob Arum at Top Rank. So, PBC in the end did some things very well, but that's another topic for another day. Why the difference, though? Why the difference in media scrutiny, the level of media scrutiny? Well, for starters, two completely different deals. Two completely different deals. And I think that, a lot of people seem to forget all the differences. So, first of all, let me just back to fighter purses real quick with Eddie Hearn. Bringing up that comment, and it's a fair comment. I think DAZN clearly overpaid for like the Canelo deal. The Canelo deal, they're getting butt fucked on that deal with no lube. You know what I'm saying? They're getting one ear or one finger in each ear, or the middle finger in the mouth, yank it back, boom, balls deep, no fucking lube. That's the way they're taking it with that Canelo deal right now. Everyone's talking about that. But what people are talking about, and this is where I think the zone's really hurting, is they're overpaying for mid-range fights. You go back to that Mikey Garcia, Jesse Vargas card, man, they paid $10 million for that card. Now, that was a great card for fight fans like us, right? We love that. It was the most stacked card of the year, but they paid $7 million to Mikey Garcia, $3 million to Jesse Vargas. Were they worth that? Now, Canelo, you can argue, is being overpaid. Golovkin, Anthony Joshua, you can argue these guys are being overpaid, but they do drive subscriptions. They're bringing, and they have brought, and there's trending and analysis reporting to see that, they have brought subscribers to DAZN. They have. Is Mikey Garcia and Jesse Vargas bringing any new subscribers to DAZN? And that's not a knock on them, but I'm just putting it out there. Are they? Now, when Mikey Garcia got overpaid for his fight against Errol Spence, there was pay-per-view revenue involved in that. And yes, it was a very small group of people that bought that pay-per-view. It was a very specific targeted fan base, mostly Mexican-American fans. But they paid a premium for that fight, and Mikey Garcia got a split of that, and it didn't come out of the promoters' pockets. That was a successful show, Spence versus Garcia. But on a platform like DAZN, where you're charging a subscribership, I think it's what now, $15 a month, not maybe $19.99, something like that. How many people paid that $19.99 to get that Mikey Garcia fight? There may have been a few thousand, but nowhere near, I think, $7 million worth. Of new subscribers. You guys who are already subscribed and paid your $99 for the year or whatever, that was an awesome card for us, for that pay that premium to get 12 months of it. But how many new subscribers came into the fold for that fight, for that card? Not many. Definitely not enough to justify $10 million. So those are the deals where I think DAZN is really getting screwed. Because at least Canelo and Golovkin and Joshua, and those guys are being overpaid. I get it. But they are bringing in subscribers. They are bringing in attention and web traffic through social media, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. So they're paying off, I think, in terms of advertising for DAZN. Every time you guys tweet about Anthony Joshua, Canelo Alvarez, that's traffic, right? That's bandwidth out there spreading the word of DAZN. When Joshua got knocked out by Andy Ruiz, how much free promotion did DAZN get on that? They did well on that show, and the rematch. It ended up being successful for them because of all the free advertisement they got because of the highlights of Ruiz knocking out Joshua. So in those situations, yes, they're overpaying, but I think it's the Mikey Garcia versus Jesse Vargas type of cards where they're really taking it in the ass. Anyway, I just wanted to make that distinction, man. Let's see. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything in the chat here. I see a lot of you guys are in there. Man, thank you so much for watching, guys. Wow, I already got 3 thumbs down. I don't know what's going on. Maybe Eddie Hearn's watching and thumbs downing my video. Eddie, relax, okay? I'm not dissing you. Okay, so let's see. I got some notes here. I want to make sure I hit on all this stuff, man. Bob Arum and Top Rank have kind of remained consistent. You go back, the boxing landscape over the last 5 years, started with the PBC thing to now. You think of how much has changed. At first, Haymon and PBC had this exodus from HBO. They went over to Showtime, right? There was a huge deal with Mayweather and CBS slash Showtime. That's big 6-fight deal that smashed records. And the big payoff there was the fight with Pacquiao. That's where they made everything back on the back end, because most of those fights on that deal lost a lot of money. But the Canelo and Pacquiao fights made serious cash, particularly the Pacquiao one. That really, really changed the game. But then eventually HBO goes away. Top Ranks makes a deal with ESPN, and DAZN is, again, Eddie Hearn. People see that as an Eddie Hearn thing, but man, Golden Boy is an exclusive deal with DAZN. The World Boxing Super Series, which is mostly with the German promoters, but several promoters are involved in that. They're on DAZN, and you've seen mid-level promoters in there as well, and some independent operators like Gennady Golovkin. He has his own promotional company. He still works with Tom Loeffler. They're on DAZN. So DAZN is kind of this conglomerate of all these different promoters, right? And then, of course, Top Rank, ESPN, and PBC, Fox. So now you got this split universe, and it's all over the place. The one thing is, Al Haymon and PBC have been accused of overpaying fighters. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom have been accused of overpaying fighters. Now DAZN, which again by default is linked to Eddie Hearn, ignorantly a lot of times, is being accused of overpaying fighters. The one entity that's remained consistent with how they pay their fighters, the way they structure their deals, is Top Rank and Bob Arum. People have criticized them for not entering their fighters not going into the World Boxing Super Series or other tournaments in the past. They don't do business that way. They have a certain business model. They pay their fighters a certain way. It is what it is. Their shows, generally speaking, break even or make a profit. Every now and then they do take a hit, but overall they do pretty well. And they really haven't changed the way they do business in terms of the way their fighters are paid, the way their deals are structured. But PBC was this great big experiment. It was a failure in a lot of ways, but there were also some major successes that came out of it. And now with DAZN, we're kind of in the midst of this experiment with DAZN, and we don't know how that's going to work out. We know the current model is unsustainable. We don't know if it's going to be a massive failure or not. But the deals have changed. And now you see guys like, look, back in the day, I remember Andre Berto getting paid 7 figures to fight. I don't want to use the word scrubs. I don't want to use that word, but B-level, C-level opposition. This guy was getting paid 7 figures, even going back to his HBO days before the mass exodus over to Showtime by Haymon. Guys like Andre Berto were getting overpaid, right? So this really is nothing new. To see Devin Haney, now a prospect with a title, getting paid 7 figures to fight a journeyman level fighter. I know that people look at that and they're like, oh man, this is brand new. You know what I'm saying? This is a new thing, and fighters are getting so overpaid now. But man, you look back 5, 6, 7 years ago, that situation was going on back then as well. So the difference now, I would say, is the sanctioning bodies have gotten really, really smart, and they're willing to throw a belt on a prospect like a Shakur Stevenson, like a Devin Haney, because it's a way for them to ensure that they got revenue coming in. And it's a way for them. Look, man, if you saw a prospect getting paid 7 figures, like Devin Haney did was that last year or early this year? I think it was late last year, on DAZN on that KSI Paul Logan card. That dude got 7 figures for that fight. If you were a sanctioned organization, wouldn't you want to buy into that shit right now? Because if he's getting 7 figures right now, you want to buy into that shit. So all of them are doing it. And maybe that's the one difference, is now you see more prospects getting titles. You see more fractured titles among the superstars. Look at the situation at lightweight where the WBC wanted to buy in to Devin Haney, but they also wanted to appease Grandpa Bob, Top Rank, and Vasily Lomachenko. So they bump him up to franchise champion. It's the same thing at middleweight. Keep Canelo happy, make him the franchise champion, but let's keep Uncle Al happy and buy into the Charlo business. Let's give him the regular title. So these sanctioning organizations have kind of bought into this fractured shit too, and they're buying into different networks. I'm telling you guys, go down the list of sanctioning organization champions and just look at like the WBA, the WBC, you know how they have interim, super, regular, all this shit, right? A lot of divisions, like the WBA, they will have a super champ on DAZN, a regular champ on ESPN, an interim champ on Fox. It's fucking nutty, man. They've gotten really, really smart. So that's kind of allowed the overpayment of fighters as well because the sanctioning bodies are getting involved. And because of that, now Devin Haney can call himself a champion. And so he can, quote unquote, justify that 7-figure payment. If he didn't have that belt, it'd be a little bit harder to justify that 7-figure purse. Whereas before, back in the day, again, I use Andre Berto as an example. I think he ended up winning a belt maybe once. I can't remember. But he was getting paid all this money way before he even had a title, and people were criticizing that. Well, now you could say, well, hey, man, I got a world title. I'm a champion, so I deserve 7 figures. So I don't know, man. The business is different right now. Fighters are getting overpaid. When you compare it to the UFC, and look, I think the UFC fighters are underpaid. I think those fighters are really abused and taken advantage of over there. But I think there's a happy medium. I think that in boxing, the promoters and the networks got to get tougher and they got to scale back. And it's going to hurt because some fighters are going to leave, but you're going to have to scale back and say, look, man, we got to pull back in some of these purses. You guys are not commanding this money. Ultimately, who takes the hit is you guys because the promoters ain't going to pay out of their pocket and the networks might pay out of their pocket up front. But if they're not getting a return on their investment, they're going to dump boxing. Look what HBO ended up doing. They're going to dump boxing, right? Well, most of that was Peter Nelson, the idiot. And you see what's been going on with him in the news recently. He's screwing up another deal. But, you know, the networks are going to ultimately get their money from you guys. And that means they're going to charge a higher premium for their monthly subscription. They're going to charge pay-per-view. Somehow, some way, it always falls on you guys. And I always say you guys can fight back with your wallet and just stop buying this shit. You know, I know it goes against my best interest to say that, but a lot of you guys I know are already Team Stream for these PBC pay-per-views. I don't blame you. You know what I'm saying? And now with DAZN, I just don't know how that's going to look because I don't know how you can get an illegal stream of a stream. I don't know how that's going to affect it. I've defended DAZN a lot. I really, really have because to me, $99 for a year to provide what they have provided was an awesome value to fight fans. And I've done videos literally breaking down the cost of what PBC is doing versus what DAZN's doing versus what Top Rank's doing. And I've shown you guys that by far, DAZN has been giving you the best deal. However, that is not a sustainable model unless they change the fighter purses. Now, do I really give a shit what they pay fighters or any of that? I don't care. You shouldn't either. What I care about is the value you guys get. And if DAZN doesn't work out and there's this mass exodus of fighters and promoters from DAZN, I think in the end, that could look really bad for you guys. That could look really, really bad for you guys because you're going to be asked to pay more money in the end when the smoke clears from that rubble. But okay, I'm skipping all over the place here, guys. Again, this is just a rant, so I apologize if it's not that well structured. But okay, comparisons to the deal that PBC and Al Haymon made back in 2015 and what DAZN did / Eddie Hearn, even though he was just the first guy involved more recently, about a year and a half ago. So there are comparisons. There are parallels. I understand that it's an easy parallel to draw because it's like, oh, a huge investment in boxing and there's a face attached to it. And there's going to be agendas in the media and among boxing fans, whether you're for that person or against that person. And that's going to determine if you root for it or root against it. I get all that, all those comparisons. Okay. But there's also big differences. Okay. Much different deals. So with PBC, you're dealing with house money. PBC raised funds from a hedge fund group. I think it was like $500 million that they put in, right? DAZN was dealing with their own money. Now, it's not to say they didn't have investors and everything like that, but again, the head of that group is a billionaire, and there are other billionaires attached to it. So you had house money versus your own money. That's going to have a big effect on the way that you do business. A big effect on the way that you do business. So up front, those are two very different deals. Also, as I mentioned before, PBC, strictly Al Haymon. Strictly Al Haymon. It's his thing. Now, over on DAZN, again, people say it's Eddie Hearn, but it's also Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy. It's the World Boxing Super Series, which involved all sorts of promoters around the world, mostly Sauerland there in Europe. And there's been, look, Tom Waffler's on there. I think DeBella's had fights on there. A bunch of different promoters have had fights. Honda over in Japan, he's had fights on there. So you're talking one person, one entity versus literally a dozen or so entities on the zone. So that's a huge difference as well. You're also dealing with a pretty much exclusively American thing, that's PBC, and a global brand with the zone. Again, I go back to the World Boxing Super Series. None of the American promoters are really doing that, or American platforms. So that sort of thing on the zone, that's just for boxing nerds, an awesome thing that you didn't get before. Here's the biggest difference, okay? In terms of the first year of operation, go back to 2015 and look at the fights PBC was putting up. For the most part, they were shit. For the most part, they were mismatches and they weren't very good fights, and they were put on in venues that didn't make any sense. I'm not saying that to diss PBC. I'm just giving you guys the truth. I mean, go back and look at the fights that they had. Contrast that with the first year of DAZN. Now, that's not to say DAZN didn't have shitty fights and mismatches, because they did. But they also gave you guys, within the first calendar year, you got 2 seasons of the World Boxing Super Series. You got the biggest upset in heavyweight boxing since Tyson Douglas. You got to see the biggest superstars in the sport, like Canelo Alvarez and Anthony Joshua. You got fights from multiple continents, multiple countries. You got to see the entire fight card. You got to see, 4-0 prospects fight. You got the whole show. You could go back and rewatch it anytime. You also got the best quarter of boxing. The fourth quarter of last year was the best schedule on any platform, going back to HBO Boxing After Dark in the 90s. You got all of that in the first year on DAZN for $99 versus the first year of what you got on PBC. Night and day difference there. So the media scrutiny, that's where it comes from, okay? And that's why there's a difference there in media scrutiny. Also, I'll say this much. PBC's business plan up front was, let's take a handful of spaghetti, throw it at the wall, and see what sticks. Remember, they were on like 500 different networks. There was no rhyme or reason to it. And I'm not saying this to bash it. It was awesome that boxing was back on regular TV and regular cable. It wasn't just on regular TV like Fox or CBS. It was on Spike TV and places like that, where you paid for it, but it was cheap. It wasn't premium cable, right? So that was cool, but there was no rhyme or reason. Keith Thurman might be on CBS this fight. His next fight might be on Spike. People were all over the place. On DAZN, it was one place. So there was a clear model of what they were doing, right? It was, you got the World Boxing Super Series. You got all these superstar fighters. You're working with all these different promoters. You're doing unification matches. They even brought over some ESPN fighters a couple times. Remember, we had Ramirez and Hooker fight together. You had events like that. And yes, you had freak show attractions like KSI versus Logan Paul and stuff. I get it. But very, very clear business plan with one place. And then PBC was all over the place with no clear business plan. Huge difference. Massive difference. Super chat pledge from Johnny Boy. What's up, Paisan? Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. He says, here's the world's smallest violin playing for fanboys of networks and promoters. Real boxing fans don't do that shit. Salute, Mike Paisano. So true, Johnny Boy. So true. Honestly, I don't give a shit what network puts on a fight. I don't give a shit what promoter puts on a fight. All I care about is that you guys get the best value for your buck. And what I'm going to do is always tell you who's giving you the best value. That changes month to month, week to week in boxing. Sometimes it's PBC, sometimes it's Top Rank, whatever. But it just seems that in this age of boxing, that a lot of fans root for a promoter or a network. It's so odd. And now there's a bunch of people rooting for DAZN to fail. And if you're not all in saying, yeah, I want DAZN to fail, then they'll say, oh man, but I bet you wanted PBC to fail. You're a hypocrite. You're biased. You're fill in the blank, okay? And that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Again, two very, very different deals. What else could I talk about here? I talked about the business plan deal. And for me, that was the biggest one because as a member of the Fight Press, as a guy who writes about this shit, right? And does a weekly podcast and talks about this stuff and is very active on Twitter. The best thing I could do is tell you guys what's coming up and try to break down how I see things unfolding. It's very easy to do that when you're working with a platform that is open with the media and has a clear business plan. You guys have all known for the last year or so that Top Rank wanted to put Vasily Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez together in the ring. You've known that. There's no mystery. So what that helps me, that aids me in telling the story. That aids me in over the last year on the Neutral Corner and different articles and different radio shows I've called into and done guest spots on. And I get asked questions about, well, what's coming up for this person or that person? I can tell you, it's pretty clear what direction things are going in that world. With PBC up front, that really wasn't the case when they were on quote unquote free TV because it was just all over. There was no business plan. There was no transparency with the media and with the fans. And that was the most frustrating part. Also, the agenda, the goal at PBC up front. And I'm saying this, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. It's not a conspiracy theory. I'm telling you this because people inside that organization have told me over beers, just chatting. And I'm not the only one that they've told this to. It's the secret's out there, okay? Their goal was a hostile takeover of boxing. Their goal was to push Bob Arum out, push Golden Boy out, get rid of everyone and take over and be the UFC of boxing. They wanted to do PBC titles in each division. They wanted to do their own title belts. They wanted to do away with the other belts. It's part of why they stopped recognizing the WBO. They still need that WBC and WBA money. But you'll notice they don't recognize the IBF a whole lot, and they don't do a whole lot of business at all with the WBO. They don't even recognize that they exist. They were wanting to do Haymon wanted to be the Dana White of boxing. That is what that ultimate goal was there. And because of the way they came out with this hostile takeover, squatting on venues, I remember there were promoters, I'm not going to name names, but there were promoters in California that wanted to get on mid-level kind of club shows at StubHub Center over the summer, featuring some SoCal fighters, Mexican-American fighters, because those cards over the summer do very, very well in that venue. And Al Haymon just had all the dates registered for him. He had them all, confirmed for PBC. He never did any fights there, but he'd squat on dates like that. He'd squat on venues on certain dates just to shut out other promoters. Now, there are certain people in the YouTube boxing community that think that's gangster, think that's cool. That's, man, he playing chess. These fools playing checkers. And they thought that was awesome. I'm looking at it like, man, the fight fans here in California are getting fucked. They want to see fights. They're used to seeing summer fights at this venue, and all the dates are taken up by this guy who's not even going to put on cards here. That sort of thing was happening in multiple markets. Now, for the record, Haymon's not the only guy who's ever done that. They've all pulled stunts like that, okay? But that's just one example of things that were going on at that time because the plan was this hostile takeover. That's not what DAZN was trying to do. DAZN is trying to be the Netflix of boxing. They're trying to be the Netflix of sports globally, but that was their goal. And that's still their goal. And they've made that. That's another thing, too. The PBC wasn't really telling you guys that's what they wanted to do. DAZN has been saying from day one, what we want to be is the Netflix of sports. Now, whether you agree with their tactics and the way they've gone about it, fine. But it's very, very clear what their agenda is. They're not lying. They're not hiding it. There's no hidden motive. It's what they want to do. And instead of squatting on venues and doing all this stuff, their way of getting out there and making a big splash was to overpay fighters, to throw out these huge, huge amounts of money to make a splash very, very quickly. They were using their own money. They weren't using house money. So again, all these things are part of the reason why you see a different take from most of the fight media talking about DAZN and their dealings versus the way PBC was covered in 2015, 2016. Now, let me give PBC credit for something. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to mention it again. Them doing what they did forced people like Bob Arum, people like Oscar De La Hoya to step up their game, and they did. So a big reason, it's not the main reason, but it is part of the reason why Top Rank ends up going over to ESPN and HBO gets out of the boxing business and you guys get fights back on regular cable and stuff like that is because of the moves Al Haymon made. So that wasn't their intention. They were trying to get Arum and those guys out of the business, right, and minimize them to a point where they were a non-factor. They ended up making their profiles bigger because those guys responded. So it was a positive effect, a positive outcome for you guys that the other promoters were forced to step up their game because of the moves Uncle Al made. So in that respect, I'm happy what happened with PBC. It forced the other guys to step up their game. Hopefully that continues. Let me go to the chat real quick here. I thought I saw a question I wanted to get to. Hamed has a good question. Hamed asking, why did they offer guys like Wilder, especially Triple G, $100 million deals with no guarantees of a Canelo trilogy? Hamed, they were throwing out big-time money. As far as the Canelo-Golovkin trilogy, I don't know the inner workings of that deal. I don't know how much power and influence they have to demand that third fight. I would assume that at some point that fight has to happen or those deals are null and void. That's my assumption. I have no fact to base that off of. But when people go around saying that there's no guarantee of a third fight, they don't know that either. And I just, dude, if you're offering $100 million or these huge, absorbent amounts of money, somewhere in that deal there has to be some fine print saying, look, dude, you get 4 fights, you get 2 years and 4 fights, but by then you got to fight. Look back to that Mayweather contract with CBS, 6-fight deal. It wasn't until the 5th fight in that he fought Pacquiao. The 5th fight in, okay? So it took years, dude. They paid out hundreds of millions of dollars and took a bath financially. It was the Guerrero fight, right, where they lost a shit ton of money. And I think 2 Maidana fights that they lost money on. Of course, they lost money on the Berto fight, but it didn't matter by then. But they needed that Pacquiao fight to make all that money back, and it ended up working out for them and then some. They ate well off that fight. But at some point, do you think Floyd really wanted to fight Pacquiao if he didn't have to? Do you think he really wanted to work with Bob Arum? It was somewhere in the deal where, look, dude, we're going to pull the plug here. They got it done. And I just have to believe that Canelo, Triple G, the third fight, not that it's anywhere near the level of a Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, but there's going to be a deal worked out. Now, it might not come as quick as we all want it, but it's got to be in the contract somewhere. But the Deontay Wilder thing, yeah, man, they offered a ton of money there. I think it was $20 million for Brazil, and I think $40 million twice to fight AJ twice. I think that was the 3-fight deal, something like that. Okay, something like that. Let's see. Yeah, Hamed says DAZN should not have invested heavily in guys like Triple G, I would say, and Canelo, unless the trilogy is guaranteed on. I agree, and I think somewhere in there it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It has to. Robert Blake says DAZN is a private company owned by Russian billionaires, and the LDBC somehow knows what's going on. DAZN isn't paying because DAZN isn't getting any content from like La Liga. Yeah, that's what I said earlier, Robert. They're not paying the fees to these different leagues and stuff. I talked about that earlier. They're trying to defer the payments. It's not that they're never going to pay them; they're deferring them. But it's backed by billionaires, and it's their own money versus house money. So they're going to be okay. People talking about DAZN's demise right now need to pump the brakes. This current business model is not sustainable. They have to make adjustments. But if you go back and look at my videos in 2015, 2016, when I'm talking about the PBC, I was basically saying the same thing. PBC's current business model was not sustainable. And what did they do? They changed it. I was there for some of the first PBC events where, dude, they had a spread as far as food went for media. There were drivers for the fighters. There were people driving the fighters around town from the hotel to the, wherever the pressers were, the weigh-in. They had drivers, okay? Everyone was getting chauffeured. Everyone was getting flown, taken care of. Some people were getting flown first class. It was nothing but the best. After about 6 months of that shit, whoop, that stopped. They changed their their commentary team. Certain people that were costing more money and making demands, they got cut out. Cheaper guys were brought in. There were a bunch of guys on their commentary teams that were no names at the time. Completely inexperienced no names at the time. They've now become names. But they were doing that because they had to change what they were doing financially because the money was running out. They had, I think, $500 million to play with. These dudes have billions, literally billions. So to say that they're in trouble of folding right now is absolutely ridiculous. And all of these financial experts on YouTube and all this, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's all agendas. Oh, we got Mark on the chat. Unrivaled Boxing. He says, all the money DAZN's put in, they know they'd lose. But it was to get their foot in the door, and now they have their whole body in the door. Exactly, Mark. Exactly. So did they overpay? Yeah, they overpaid. I really think they overpaid on that Canelo deal. I think Canelo's star power globally, and I take heat for saying this, but I think it's exaggerated. I think outside of the Americas, particularly North America, Mexico, obviously, he's nowhere near the brand that he's made out to be. He's just not. He doesn't have the crossover appeal. He doesn't give a shit about doing media appearances and things like that. He's just not that guy. So, yeah, did they overpay? Yes. But overnight, they're a player. Overnight. Now, that's never happened. Not like this. Not in boxing. Think about this, guys. I mean, just overnight, boom, you're in, right? So they succeeded with that. Is it sustainable? Well, a fucking global pandemic didn't necessarily help. They had a great ending to 2019, and then this happened. This is unforeseen. That's another huge difference between the PBC situation and this one. Johnny Boy with another super chat. Awesome, brother. Thank you so much, my man. By the way, we got to get you on the show, and I need to call in and maybe do your show one of these times. He says, Americans fanboy for PBC, Europeans fanboy for DAZN. The big fish eat the little fish, and Johnny Boy keeps on swimming. Hey, as long as you're not swimming with the fishes, you're good, Johnny Boy. I appreciate the super chat. Yeah, I mean, you're right, man. Look, it's weird, bro. People fanboy for platforms and promoters. What the fuck? You're supposed to fanboy for fighters. I don't get it. I fanboy for boxing. I fanboy for who's giving you guys the best deal. I assume if you're watching my ass rant here into my phone in my basement, you're a diehard. You're a pretty diehard fight fan. So I'm trying to look out for you guys and just tell you who's doing you dirty and who's doing the best by you. And so, look, I thought what DAZN offered you guys in 2019 was awesome. I didn't get anything from that. I'm not hired by DAZN. I don't have any stake in DAZN. But last year, what they offered you guys was the best value in all of boxing since HBO Boxing After Dark in the 90s. I've been consistent with that. Now, this year, they've been stir-fried dog shit. However, There's a global pandemic. So what can you do? The one thing, and I've talked about this, they have zero shoulder programming. They have nothing to offer you guys. And for the amount that they're overpaying all these fighters, a fraction of 1% of that could have gone to establishing some sort of boxing, shoulder programming for diehards, not for casuals, not shit for some casual who tunes into boxing 2 or 3 times a year. Shit for you guys, you junkies, you fucking degenerates who watch boxing every week, who watch guys like me talk about this shit. That's what the shoulder programming needs to be geared toward. And they didn't do that. They didn't plan ahead. And that's biting them in the ass. And even though there's no fights right now, they could be making investments in that right now, and they're not. And that's a huge disappointment. I should state that I think one thing I forgot to talk about, guys. Last October, DAZN hired a firm, I think it was Goldman Sachs, to try to raise $500 million to support an expansion plan. Do you guys remember that? DAZN was planning at the end of last year, during that big fourth quarter push where they had all those great fights, to go into over 200 countries. 200 countries. And they had to put the brakes on that when COVID had. So that whole expansion plan, put the brakes on that. Is that still going to be part of it going forward? Are they still going to try to go back to that? I don't know. But I do remember the LDBC guys and people were saying, oh, they're looking for money. They're hurting right now. They're bleeding right now. They're looking for money. Yeah, idiot. They're looking for investors to go into 200 markets, from 9 markets to 200. That's not the same thing as what's going on right now. Very, very different. But of course, their reporting was bullshit. Let's see what else we got in the chat here. Pasta Fazul says, hey, Goomba. Hey, yourself. Thanks for watching, man. PED asks any of us if the Kovalev versus Canelo fight was fixed. No! Next subject. It was about as fixed as Tyson Fury's gloves were tampered with in the Deontay Wilder rematch. How about that? Robert Blake says, PED Infowars. Douglas Iglesias asks, what did I miss? Bro, you're late. That's why you click the notification bell. Click the notification bell. Let me tell you guys something. I'm going to go on a quick rant here. YouTube and Google is actively seeking to minimize guys like me. I got some more insider information over the weekend. I chatted on the phone with somebody very, very well connected to Google in California. Works with them to a certain capacity, has friends that work with them to a large capacity. It let me in on a few things. I'm not going to go into detail here, but there are active agendas right now at Google/YouTube to push a guy and suppress a guy like me down while promoting these assholes that push conspiracy theories and race baiting, extremism on their channels. They're getting bumped up right now in the algorithm, and I'm getting pushed down just to push certain political agendas that some of the executives at Google have. And then I've already talked to you guys about independent media like myself versus corporate-backed media. Google's all in. So the best thing you could do to help a guy like me out, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you click that notification bell, make sure you hit the thumbs up, make sure you leave a comment, make sure that you share this video and every video I post on your social. That helps me fight these motherfuckers who are trying to push a guy like me down simply because I don't check enough boxes that they want to promote, which is really fucked up and really Orwellian if you think about it. Okay, I'm not going to go down that road too much, but I just want to say props to Joe Rogan for telling YouTube to go fuck off and signing an exclusive deal with Spotify. It's got me thinking about making some changes, guys. That's all I got to say, because YouTube is becoming ridiculous, the things that they're doing behind the scenes. Oh, Super Chat Pledge from Unrivaled Boxing. Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it, my man. I hope you're doing well. He says, we got to support the independent people who work in the sport to bring you content. I salute you, sir. I salute Johnny Boy. I salute CJ Duncan, everybody else that's contributed today, and all of you guys for watching the video. Thank you very, very much. And that's right. And by the way, that includes people in the media, in the YouTube boxing community that you may not agree with. As long as they're reasonable and logic and fact based, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have different opinions, different preferences. That's fine. If somebody's being ridiculous and they're making up conspiracy theories, I saw some other thing, I think last week I tweeted about it, where somebody was saying that Deontay Wilder was poisoned by a member of Tyson Fury's team or something. I'm like, dude. And that shit has thousands of clicks. And just because the guy who posted that video checks certain boxes, YouTube's going to promote that video. I can't believe it. I might as well start being a flat earther. I'll get more fucking clicks on my videos. It's insane, man. Pasta Fazul asks, have I seen Sonny Kanto fight? What do I think of him? I have seen him fight a little bit. We actually follow each other on social. And good size and everything. What I'd like to see him do to step up to sparring and everything like that is get out of his area. And I think he's fine for where he is right now. But I think it'd be awesome if he went out to either LA or even Vegas and started like living there full time and training out there. He's got potential. Is he somebody that I'm crazy excited for? You know, like, oh my, like a Daniel Dubois or something? No, of course not. But he's got some potential. He's got some good size. What I hope doesn't happen to him is he's used as cannon fodder for somebody. But yeah, heavy hands, good size, good mentality, amateur background. So there's a lot to like there. Long way to go, though, bro. Long way to go. And, you know, he's got to get better sparring, better training. And if I were managing his career, I'd want to make some changes with the way that they're doing that kind of stuff. King Nello says, if you claim Wilder as your king, you'll get more views. Come on, Mike. I know you want to call him king. Hey, you know what, man? I went really hard on Deontay Wilder after that rematch with Fury because of the suit excuses and all that. But I got to give him credit. Right now, I like the media silence from Deontay Wilder. I like that he's off of social media while all this Glovegate shit's going on and all these idiots are saying all this stuff. He ain't playing into it at all. Would I like him to come in and say, this is all bullshit, stop posting this? Yes, that's what I would do if I were him. But I prefer him just kind of sitting on the sidelines and taking care of his family right now and doing what he's got to do, preparing for that third fight with Fury, than playing into that shit. So it's not his fault that these people are making these Glovegate videos and all these conspiracy videos. That's not his fault. Did he maybe inspire them or, you know, yeah, maybe. You could make that argument. But he's not shoving his hand up their ass and playing them like puppets and making them say all that shit. So, you know, I don't blame Deontay for all this stuff. But again, if I were him, I'd come out and say something. The one sneaky genius about it, and maybe why he is staying quiet, is free promotion. As crazy as these conspiracy theories are and everything, as annoying as it is, guys, it's free promotion. So when that third fight with Fury happens, a lot of people have said, oh, that fight's going to tank. No one's going to watch it. I disagree. I think more people could end up watching it. Don't call me crazy. If they do it right, all the conspiracy theory shit, all the racially charged bullshit, I hate it. I hate that stuff. But there's a certain group of fans from all walks of life that buy into that shit. And I'm telling you, people are going to watch that third fight now. They were always going to watch it. But him sitting there just letting these idiots talk and give him free promotion, even if it's insane promotion, he ain't saying that shit. They're saying it. So maybe it's smart for him just to sit back and let them do it, you know? Okay, Jeffrey on the chat says, Michael, they say he is feeding them that bullshit. He needs to come out and say yay or nay. Well, Jeffrey, who is they? Right? Who is they? I haven't heard from any reliable source that I trust that Deontay Wilder is calling up the LDBC and say, hey, man, say that Fury's gloves were loaded. All right, cool, peace. Right? I haven't heard that. So, look, I'm not saying it, I don't know that it's not happening. Again, I do agree with you. He could post a video on his social, a 1-minute video just saying, please stop with all his conspiracy theory stuff. Tyson Fury beat me fair and square. I'm really looking forward to getting revenge when we fight later this year. I'm going to train harder than ever. I'm making some changes in camp. I'm going to be heavier. I'm working on bulking up right now. Something like that. That's what I would do if I were him. But I'm not him. So, this is the way he's choosing to deal with it. Could be a lot worse, bro. He could be buying into this shit. And as far as I understand, he's not. Jeffrey also says in the chat, they continually say they are in contact with him. So I assume you mean the LDBC. Bro, that's like me saying, me and Elvis Presley played foosball last week. I mean, what the fuck? These guys are fucking whack jobs. They're fucking idiots. So believing anything the LDBC guys say, come on, man. Joe Biden is more coherent neurologically than these guys on the LDBC. So pay that no mind. Do you really think they're having conversations with Deontay Wilder? Come on now. Maybe a couple of them might chat with them on Twitter or some shit. What's up, champ? Something like that, but nah. Jeffrey says, not going to put names out there. I watch most all videos. Well, Jeff, if you're watching the LDBC videos, you're part of the problem, brother. I appreciate you being here watching my video. But if you're watching these guys, look, I understand some of it's entertaining, okay? But you're also giving them traffic. You're giving them, even if you're downvoting the video, you guys don't understand. Even if you downvote a video, it still counts as a vote. It's traffic. That thumbs downing a video is better than not watching it, believe it or not, for a channel's promotion, a channel's for the algorithm and all that. So if you don't watch a video, that's more detrimental to them than watching it, thumbs downing, and leaving 5 nasty comments like, you're a fucking idiot. That helps them more, believe it or not. That's the way the algorithm works. Let's see. You guys are funny, man. Good stuff in the chat. Robert Blake says, pay-per-view is what killed U.S. boxing in the 90s. Robert, I understand that sentiment, but at the same time, the biggest pay-per-view ever was in the 2000s. It was in the 2010s. So the biggest difference between the 90s and today is in the 90s you had Tyson, Holyfield, Bo, those guys making, Lennox Lewis even a few times, making big money on American pay-per-view. You don't have that the same way right now. You don't have the stars. So it is different. It's way more global now than it was in the 90s. It's still centered in America, but dude, you got big markets over in the UK, different parts of Latin America, different parts of Asia, Europe. So it's just all over now. And there were 2 platforms back in the 90s here in America, HBO, Showtime. Now there's a million platforms, and most of it's online. Most of it's on apps. It's just a very different marketplace, And look, man, Anthony Joshua, look at the purse he got in that Andy Ruiz rematch. I mean, that's pretty much up there with what Tyson and Holyfield and those guys were getting back in the 90s. So the money's still there. It's just he fought in Saudi Arabia, not Memphis, Tennessee, which is where I think Tyson and Lennox Lewis fought. So just the demographics have changed, the locale has changed, and the media platforms have changed. But there's more money in boxing than ever, bro. There's more money in boxing than ever. Look at Eddie Hearn's deal with DAZN. Look at Canelo Alvarez's deal with DAZN. Floyd Mayweather's deal that I talked about in the 2010s with CBS. No deals like that were going down in the 80s and 90s. So it's there. It just depends on, these guys fight each other or not. I think that they could do a better job of that. The heavy-handed edition says, you're no better. I like you and them. Well, you're entitled to your opinion. The difference between me and them, heavy-handed edition, I don't do conspiracy theories, and I actually work in media. I write for the Ring Magazine. I write for Boxing Monthly. I do regular media work that matters. I've been a part of some I've been told groundbreaking work as it relates to performance-enhancing drugs reporting and things like that, and they're not doing that. They're yapping into their fucking YouTube channel, into their phone. A lot of these guys don't even show their faces. They don't even put their real names out there. My real name, my real face is out there. I can't hide. You guys see me out in public, it's me. I've bumped into 1 million of you guys out in public before. So, I put my name and face on my shit, and I actually work in media. They're fucking idiots talking about conspiracy theories. So there you go. Not to say I'm some big fish. I'm a fucking pup. I'm a small fish in the fucking pond. But at least I'm a fucking fish. These motherfuckers ain't even in the pond. So that's the difference. In fact, they're fucking pissing in the pond. That's what they're doing. Scott Brown says the zone spent a lot of money and have no limited upside. I don't know, man. I don't know. They spent a lot of money. I do think they have upside. I do think they have upside. They just need to make changes. And I guess that's the point to my rant here. They have an opportunity. They have a great opportunity. They just got to make serious changes, bro. And it's never too late to make changes. And maybe with this whole COVID thing and the slowdown, maybe people will take a step back and restructure some of these deals, or find a way to better service, or find a way to have a more sustainable system, because this system right now is not sustainable. It's great for right now. It's not sustainable long term. The heavy hand of the dishes says, why can't we like both? What the fuck? I'm not saying you can't like both, bro. Like both. I'm glad you're here, okay? I'm glad you're watching my video. And look, man, if you find those guys entertaining, I basically look at that shit as like a TMZ kind of thing, although TMZ actually does report facts every now and then. So I actually look at them as tabloid fodder. And not all of them. They're not all the exact same. But a lot of the guys, and by the way, it's not just the LDBC. There's plenty of channels in other parts of the YouTube boxing community that are complete dog shit. Okay, it's not just the LDBC. And there are some guys at the LDBC that I've met in person and were wonderful guys. Treated me with nothing but respect. Awesome guys I could crack a beer with. Seriously. So it's not all, I don't want to paint everything with a broad brush, bro. Like both. That's awesome. I'm glad you're here. I'm just telling you the difference. I pride myself on actually doing some work in fight media, legitimate fight media. I pride myself on being as unbiased and objective and logic and fact-based as I can be. And that means I pretty much piss everybody off. I get called in all sorts of names and labeled all sorts of nasty shit by just about every damn group out there. I've been attacked by the SJW feminist motherfuckers when I talked about the Jenny Suchet girl, a day or two before everybody else did. Not everybody, 99% of you motherfuckers, because you were scared to. I'm that guy that will step over the line and fucking say what needs to be said, even though it works to my detriment most of the time. So you're allowed to like whoever the fuck you like, and that's cool, bro. All I'm saying is I don't like those motherfuckers because a lot of what they do is negative and it hurts boxing. I think the LDBC guys have put unfair pressure on Deontay Wilder that he doesn't deserve. He should not be their king. Now, he plays into some of that shit, okay. But the glove gate, all this stuff, dude, that's not putting pressure on Tyson Fury. Not at all. In that third fight, Deontay Wilder is going to be wearing the weight, no pun intended, of his own excuses with the weight vest and all that, but also all the glovegate shit, all the conspiracy theories, because all these dudes that he symbolizes something for them, okay? They look at him and they see a symbol for an ideal that they have. And when they saw that ideal get broken, they couldn't handle it. It was when Nazi Germany crumbled and the assholes who bought into that ideology, when they saw that it was wrong, it was not the right ideology, and a better ideology won out, they didn't know what to do. So a lot of those motherfuckers took a strychnine tablet and shot themselves. They couldn't handle the fact that their ideology wasn't real. It was bullshit. So a lot of these LDBC guys, dude, watch some of those videos. These dudes are having emotional breakdowns, grown men almost crying because a fighter lost. Not because they're fans of boxing, because of, they're fans of Deontay Wilder as a fighter, but because of some ideological extremist prejudice thing that he represented for them. Again, not all, just some. And that's crazy, dude. I don't want that shit in my sport. And that, by the way, It exists in all circles. You could say the same thing about a million other fighters and some of their extremist, idiotic fans, okay? But the latest example, and the one that keeps going, dude, we're about to hit June. We're about to hit June, and there are motherfuckers still talking about Glovegate. Not just me making fun of them. I'm talking about people putting out breaking news, new, information, videos and shit about that stuff. I know because I see it. People forward it to me. I'm like, what? And some of this shit gets tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views, and it's making these dudes thousands of dollars. And I'm like, bro, you're not reporting facts. You're not even reporting opinion. You're basically a fucking Nazi with dreads. That's what you're doing. That's not helping anybody. So that's why I go in on some of these motherfuckers. It's not because I want to diss anybody specifically or anything like that. It's because that shit is negative and it's hurting the sport. We're already so fractured, guys. We're already so split up. I just did a whole video talking about the fucking DAZN, comparing that to PBC and all these issues we have. And people want to spit, these conspiracy theories and stuff. It's just not helping anything, man. So go ahead and like both, bro. But I'm not going to put myself in that category. I'm not going to lower my standards for them. I remember one of my coaches when I was started training with a particular coach. And this guy was a former national champion. And he tuned my ass up in sparring a couple times. I was out of shape. I had just gotten back in the gym. I'm huffing and puffing after 2 rounds. And I'm like, God damn it, motherfucker, chill out, because he popped me a few times. And I'm like, dude, let me work my way back in. I was basically being a bitch. Now that I look back, I was being a complete bitch. And I was just frustrated because he kept teeing off on me. And I couldn't get away from his shots. And he basically pulled his mouthpiece out and he goes, look, motherfucker, I'm not lowering my shit to your standards. You step up your shit to my standard. And I was like, all right. That's what I needed to hear. I needed to get my ass whooped and fucking spanked a little bit. So I stepped my game up to his level. And then we ended up having some great sparring and some great training together where he pulled me aside and said, dude, good round, because I'd get him back. That's kind of how I look at some of these dudes. And that's how most of the fight media looks at them. Dude, we're not going to lower ourselves to your shit. You step up your game. Some of these guys got real talent, and they really could have a place in the legitimate fight press because they actually have some really, really good talent, some stage presence, and they're entertaining. They just choose to be morons. Anyway, guys, that's not the point of this damn video. All right? Point of this video was DAZN, financial trouble. So look at this tangent you guys got me on. Anyway, I told you guys I missed you guys. I just wanted to chat with you a little bit. All right. Jeffrey says, Michael is correct. I hate to say that, but they aren't reporting facts. Truth. Yeah, that's my only issue, dude. Be entertaining, have fun. Just report something based in logic and reason. And don't go around calling everybody else the R word, racist, prejudiced, sexist, biased, blah, blah, blah. When you're the one being that, don't be that unaware. I mean, Jesus Christ. Anyway, Renee Salcedo, who owns DAZN? Well, the top guy, as I mentioned before, is Len Blavatnik, who is a billionaire with a B. And there's several other billionaires with a B that are involved. So they're going to be okay. And they have a long-term plan. They knew they were going to lose their ass the few first years out. However, that doesn't mean they can't make adjustments and fine-tune things along the way. It doesn't mean that, like people scratched their heads when they were looking to do that expansion into 200 countries, and they were going around looking to raise 500 million in investment money to do that. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? If you can help raise money to do this big push and this big investment, get more people on board, particularly if they're from some of those markets, why wouldn't you? I know one of the markets they were going to buy into was Mexico. I think one was the UK. So they had a smart plan. And then the COVID thing happened. So, that really blew things up. Can they recover? Yes. They have the money and the resources. But, 2020 is pretty much just going to be a bloodbath for DAZN. Even if they end up having a good fourth quarter, I mean, what fights legitimately, realistically, are they going to put on in the fourth quarter that's going to get them anywhere near breaking even? Nothing. It's not going to happen. In fact, their subscribership is going to be shit. And all the great work that they did, they had about 1 million. Think about this, guys. At the end of 2019, they had about 1 million subscribers. Now, in a country like America, where we have unlimited entertainment options, and this isn't me just being an elitist American, I'm a worldly guy. Okay, I've traveled a little bit. All right, it's just a fact. We have more entertainment options in the United States of America than anywhere else in the world, not just in sports, but all forms of media. Just like we have more food options than anywhere else in the world. It's just the truth, guys. I live in Atlanta. Within 2 miles, I got a Thai place, a Mexican place, a Mongolian place, a Vietnamese place. What am I forgetting here? Greek, Italian, of course. I can keep going. Korean. All within 2 miles of my fucking house. And I'm in Atlanta. I'm in middle America. I'm not in some big market like LA, okay? So we have more options, entertainment-wise, than anywhere in the world. To get 1 million people in this country to sign on for an app in its first year that's strictly boxing, that's pretty amazing. That's a big accomplishment. That's a big accomplishment. So I think they were doing well. Then this happened. Now, long term, my biggest concern for DAZN is I think the best they can ever hope for is about 2 million or so subscribers in America. 3 million would be amazing. I just don't see that happening. There aren't that many diehard fight fans in America. I think the best they can hope for is 2 million. Basically, the people that were going to buy in, bought in. 1 million, mil 5, maybe around there. If the number fluctuated from 1 mil 5 to right under 2 million, their subscriber base, that's going to be the best they can hope for in this country. You're never going to get more than that. But if you had that, and then you had a spike every time you had a big event, like a Canelo Golovkin 3, an Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, if somehow that was on DAZN. I'm just speculating, okay? And you had a spike to where that particular month, your subscribership went to 2.5, right? Then that's sustainable if you cut back on some of the spending and you provide some shoulder programming, which you desperately need. That is the best. Now, if they're spending money thinking, man, our goal is 5 million subscribers, never going to get that. Never going to get that in the United States. Ain't going to happen. Again, too many entertainment options, but then also there's just not that many die-hard fight fans that are going to pay for an annual subscription for something that just supplies boxing. People talk about ESPN, and they got like 6-7 million subscribers. They do so many sports, guys, including college sports. And college sports is the biggest thing in America. So just a completely different thing that you cannot compare. DAZN is a completely different entity. And until they buy into like the NFL, Major League Baseball, something like that, then they can break that number. But if they stay strictly boxing, the most they could ever hope for in America is 2 million. So they got to crunch up the numbers with that in mind. That being said, to get 1 million in 1 year, that's impressive. That was pretty impressive. They were still losing money, but it was an impressive start. So it sucks that this happened for them, but I think they can rebound. They just got to change some things. And they got to stop paying certain fighters too much money. The thing is, guys, there's so many promoters and so many networks now. These fighters use that as a negotiation. And they can go and they can say, look, man, like Mikey Garcia, look at the fight I just did with Errol Spence. You know, we had 50,000 fans there. I got millions of dollars. It was on pay-per-view. So somebody at DAZN said, all right, dude, you know what? We'll give you $7 million to fight Jesse Vargas. We'll give you $7 million. Does anyone think Mikey Garcia is worth $7 million? No, he's not. Particularly when people are just going to pay $19.99 to watch that fight. Some. But most people, they're not going to buy that strictly for him to watch him fight Jesse Vargas, coming off a shutout loss, by the way. They overpaid. That's the kind of deal they have to stop making. They should have been like, you know, Mikey, we'll give you 3. We'll give you 3. Maybe we'll give you an option for a second fight where you can get 7. If you fight fill in the blank. But up front, dude, you're getting 3. That's it. They got to get better about that. That's on them. But that's part of the learning process, right? And hopefully they learn a thing or two from this. All right, guys, let's go back to the chat real quick and cut this thing off, man. Could be going for 75 minutes. Who knew? I thought I was going to be talking for 15 minutes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, in the chat, you're saying sweet spot is 2 million, I think. That would be good. 2 million. 2 million. Overhand says DAZN is flourishing in Europe, but in the U.S. it's tanking, in my opinion. Yeah. And it's not, you can't say it's flourishing right now because there's no football right now. But they were doing pretty well. People forget it's currently in 9 markets. They paid a lot of money to get into boxing here. Hopefully, I think their idea was hopefully they get that return on the investment on the back end of the deal. Again, I go to Mayweather's deal with CBS, where it was 5 fights in where they finally made big-time money with that Pacquiao fight. And I think that's the way they're thinking long-term with boxing in America. But the current thing that they have going is not sustainable. Just not. Overhand says Netflix ain't even $20, and they expect Americans are going to pay that for boxing. That's a good point. That's a good point. I think Netflix is able to offer the lower fee because they have a lot more people, a lot more content, I should say, and a lot more people producing content for them. And they have a much larger subscriber base. So they can keep that premium pretty low. And you have just all this content from all over the place that's very cheap to produce. And that's what DAZN has to figure out how to do. Okay, how can we get more content in here? That you guys know, if you got Netflix, there are some documentaries on Netflix. I mean, the audio sounds like somebody shoved a camera up their ass and ran down a flight of fucking steps, right? The video's terrible. There are documentaries and stuff on Netflix where it looks like they paid $1,000 to produce it. And then you got top shelf stuff. So it's like you go to a bar, you got your fucking, shelf liquor, which is trash, and you got your top shit, right? So that's what Netflix has. And right now on DAZN, they're just paying all this money. Like everything's top shelf. Like, nah, dude, get some filler content in there. Even if it's cheap. Boxing degenerates will watch it. Trust me. Unrivaled said DAZN is $20 a month now. What happened to 10? That's too much. I don't know, Mark. I think I don't know what it is a month. I heard that they were either going to raise it or they did, possibly to $20 a month, but I don't know. I pay $100 a year, so I don't know. Overhand says DAZN should provide some BTS content. Some behind the scenes stuff. Again, I think they could pick up different podcasts. And I think, pick up a British podcast, pick up a Spanish language podcast. My boys at Voceo Tijuana, right? Those guys, pick up their podcast. So you have a podcast from Mexico on the Mexico scene, a UK podcast with the UK fight scene. That shit's going to be so cheap compared to what they're paying for. I'm talking 0.01% of what they're paying Canelo or something, 0.1%, whatever, to buy that kind of content. And I think it could help them. And not only podcasts, don't get me wrong. It's not going to save DAZN. I'm just saying, pick up some of that stuff. Pick up an LDBC show. Yes, I'm saying it. Pick up one of the LDBC shows. So you want to get podcasts and shows that are already on apps. The audience is already used to getting the content on an app, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever it is. Pick that shit up, put it on DAZN. So you got some filler material, and then do some behind the scenes stuff. Man, take some fighters' social media, put it on DAZN. Literally, Anthony Joshua could work out in his garage and put that shit on YouTube Live. If they streamed it on DAZN, motherfuckers would watch. Trust me. Some of you motherfuckers will watch just to see him with a shirt off. Oh, I said it. Anyway, Johnny Boy, for $20 a month, I want front row seats and 2 ring girls delivered to me weekly. Damn, girl. $20 a month. That's going to be a cheap girl, man. You got... $20 a month. 2 girls, that's $10 a month for the girl. I don't know, Johnny boy. You might want to double wrap that shit, homie. All right. Unrivaled says, pay me $25,000 a year and I'll do a show a day. Hit me up DAZN. Right? And Mark, your show would be better than any show they have right now on DAZN. That's not to diss the guys they have. Sergio Mora, Chris Mannix. That's not to diss them. But your show would be better, okay? It would service the service. That doesn't sound right. Particularly go off Johnny Boy's last comment. It would serve the diehard fight fans better than their current shows. It just would. Grandmaster Sethi loves books. He says $100 if you commit to a full year, $20 if you just want the monthly deal. You can cancel anytime. Okay. Yeah. So again, I think clearly that $100 deal is targeted to you guys, the diehard fans. The $20 deal is targeted to casuals that only watch when Canelo fights, only watch when AJ fights, soy boy bisexual dudes that like, getting pegged by their girlfriend who want to see Anthony Joshua with his shirt off. They're going to pay that $20 the twice a year he fights. Guys like that. The $100 is for the diehards that want to see every card. You know what I'm saying? $100 is a great deal. Says Ipanokua. I agree. It is. Johnny Boy says, Mark, better than Brendan Schaub. Well, yeah. Mark says that's not a compliment. Yeah, I mean, come on. Come on, dude. Give him more than that. Come on, Johnny Boy. Step it up. I mean, shit. The morning shit I took is worth more than Brendan Schaub. And, Brendan Schaub is a human being. I got nothing against him. But when that dude talks about boxing, it's like, hearing a Mongoloid talk about astrophysics. It just doesn't work. I'm going to get in trouble for that one. Oh, shit. I'm going in today. Unrivaled says, man said pegged by their girl. You know those motherfuckers are out there, Mark. And they usually have that blue check mark next to their name on Twitter. Some of them even have boxing podcasts. All right, guys. I'm losing my voice. It's time for a beer. Might go do some more work in the yard. I don't know. Maybe I'll take the rest of the day off. All right, guys, look. TNC will be back next Monday. And then, next Monday. Then the following Saturday, I'm turning 41. June 13 is my 41st birthday. And I don't know what we're going to do yet, but we'll do something fun. Hopefully the the Rona, will be chilled out a little bit more by then. We'll be able to go out and do something fun. All right, guys. Make sure, again, you thumbs up this video. You share it. I'm probably going to ruffle a little feathers with some of my jokes. Hopefully I didn't offend too much of you guys. I just like to have a little bit of fun. Have a good week. All right. And we'll see you Monday at TNC.